So the Steelers' decision got a little bit more interesting after their first preseason game against the Seahawks. First off, Mitch Trubisky, 4 for 7, 63 yards and a touchdown, but outdone by the rookie, Kenny Pickett, 13 for 15, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, we kind of figured that it was going to be between those two, and Mason Rudolph at best was competing for the third stringer job if the Steelers so decide to have a third string on their roster. But I think this is an interesting debate, not because we see it every year, obviously, the veteran versus the rookie. Mitch Trubisky, you kind of look at his career. Obviously, we look at his career with the Chicago Bears and a middling starter, someone that didn't get a lot of respect, didn't get a lot of love. But obviously, we had poor interpretations of what Matt Nagy was doing in Chicago. He's still a young guy, 27 years old, had a redshirt year with Buffalo. Pittsburgh, potentially a second opportunity to make something in the league, get another contract in the league. Yet the Steelers obviously made the decision in the first round to draft Kenny Pickett. And it felt like a move that while they were more than willing to do, the media kind of bullied them into obviously doing it. Because Kenny Pickett went to Pitt, hometown kid, good story, great story for them. And the Steelers, obviously, with Ben Roethlisberger retiring, needed to get it younger at quarterback. Whether it's Mitch or Pickett, they needed to get younger at quarterback with someone. Now it's just a matter of, in the 2022 season, making the right move to help the team win games. Based off what we know, what do you think is the right move, Kyle?
For the starting quarterback position, Kenny Pickett should start week 1, because I'm a firm believer that you should start quarterbacks week 1 when they are rookies. It's not a tried and true, like this should happen in every situation. Like Jordan Love shouldn't have started week 1, but case in point, the Packers maybe shouldn't have drafted Jordan Love. But I think if you draft a quarterback in the first round and you plan for this person to be your starter for the next 10 years, you should start them right away, especially for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, while their offensive line is still not good, they have gone from being the team who we remember during the pandemic season started 11-0 in the regular season, and they had the number 1 defense in the sport, and their offense was just terrible. And then they lost in the wild card. And I think since then they're like 10-14-1 or something like that, since they started 11-0 in 2020. So Pittsburgh has since then drafted Najee Harris, drafted Kenny Pickett. They've invested in the wide receivers, like giving Deontay Johnson an extension. Chase Claypool is still there. Pittsburgh, they drafted Freiermuth last year in the second round. So they've spent a ton on weapons and quarterbacks and rebuilding that offense. So Pittsburgh is a talented team. Therefore, if you already have a talented team and you're not like one of those teams like the Jaguars last year that just threw Trevor Lawrence to the Wolves, all the more reason to start the rookie week 1.
I hear where you're coming from. And if Kenny Pickett continues to perform at this level in the preseason, it's going to be hard to argue against him starting week 1, because at that point he shows that he's unfazed by the speed of the NFL game. But I'm not completely opposed to Mitch getting the start in week 1, because Mitch, again, is still a young guy himself and may be finding his footing in the NFL, just needed the right situation. Obviously, maybe going to Chicago, where they haven't had a good starting quarterback in their history, is probably not the ideal situation to fall into. But when you land into the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm even looking at Pittsburgh this year, a lot of people obviously writing them off post Ben Roethlisberger, but I wouldn't be surprised if you told me we're looking in the playoffs and Pittsburgh is in there. Just because of the type of blue blood organization that is, just because of the type of head coach they have in Mike Tomlin, I would not be surprised if you told me they managed to scratch and claw, get into the playoffs, even if they got their ass pounded by the Chiefs in the first round. That would still be an accomplishment for this team, and that would still show the type of football character that this organization has. I think Mitch can do it, but based strictly on the first preseason game, I can't say that I don't think Kenny Pickett can do it either. So I don't think that necessarily Mike Tomlin is in a situation like he was in a couple years ago when they had to throw out Ducky Hodges or Mason Rudolph. I think they're in a much better quarterback position than they were that time. And I think they're in a much better quarterback position than they were even last year, because I think Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett respectively are probably better than what Ben Roethlisberger was in the 2021 season. So I think Pittsburgh might have upgraded at the quarterback position just in that sense. And I think that alone just gives you a little bit of hope for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if worst case, I told you, they make the playoffs with Mitch this year, but Pickett had a red shirt, I think Pittsburgh Steelers fans would still be happy with that solution. Maybe Mitch goes on to greener pastures. Maybe he sticks around for another year. But when we came into this draft, we weren't exactly looking at the quarterback position as a premium. We thought that most of these guys were going to be developmental players. I think even when Pittsburgh drafted Kenny Pickett, they thought, well, if we're lucky, maybe he's ready to start in a couple years. Not nearly to the extent Malik Willis, but certainly I think that when you talk about a mid first round pick as opposed to a top 10 first round pick, like we're talking about with Trey Lance, I think that they were willing to let Kenny Pickett sit on the bench a little bit longer than other starters that are drafted in the first round. So
see, this part
can't go wrong.
Absolutely. I don't think they can go wrong either here. I don't think that this is a long-term project, because I will point out the stat that since the 21st century, there's only been 2 cases where a quarterback has sat multiple years, and both of them were Green Bay Packers quarterbacks. So everyone non-Green Bay Packers, their first round quarterback has started at least by week 1 of year 2. And so
let me just throw this in there. One thing that I remember talking to former coach Hugh Jackson about, and this was talked about in regards to his decision to leave Baker Mayfield on the bench his rookie year, is the team has to be ready for it. And why the Steelers might have a little bit more grace if they did start Kenny Pickett week 1, because Mitch obviously signed as a free agent. He's not married to any of those guys in the league or on that team. So if they wanted to do it, they probably could get away with it a lot more than other franchises that have more of an incumbent starter.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. It's like last year with the Chicago Bears and Andy Dalton with Justin Fields. Now, where there's the big difference here is that we know that during the bye week, there was a mandate from the Bears owner that you are going to start Justin Fields over Andy Dalton, because if Matt Nagy had his way, he would have kept clawing 4 yards at a time with Andy Dalton all the way to his firing. But the owner started meddling, and all of a sudden Justin Fields got thrown to the wolves. Pittsburgh, we assume, is a well-run organization. Obviously, we think of them as, like, if not the silver standard, the bronze standard of the last 20 years in the NFL. And we assume that they're going to let Mike Tomlin, the Hall of Fame coach, pick on his own timeline. So I trust Mike Tomlin's judgment better than myself in terms of who the starting quarterback was going to be. I think Mike Tomlin and I would both agree that you're calling the New York Jets and trying to trade Mason Rudolph for a 4th-round pick. But regardless of how that plays out, I think that Mike Tomlin's judgment will be better than mine. My tried and true rule is that there's really very few scenarios in which I would not start the rookie week 1 if you're drafting him in the first round, if you have the faith that that quarterback is going to be your guy for the next 10 years, which if you're drafting a quarterback in the first round, I think
this is a variation between mid first round and early first round. I think mid first round is more speculation picks. Like, you believe that they could be a high end talent, but early first round is you saying, I know this guy is going to be a talent, and I think this guy's going to be wearing a gold jacket one day.
Combined with the fact that if you're picking in the mid to late first round, your team is already pretty good. So that's different than someone at the top of the draft who you don't really have a great quarterback.
See, I think obviously there's an element of obviously Ben retired and public peer pressure for the Steelers to draft a quarterback there that led to Kenny Pickett, which it's not a bad move. It's probably the needed right move. I'm just saying that I do think that those factors combine into the ultimate draft pick of Kenny Pickett where he went. Like I said, I think that they are in a situation where they're a much better quarterback position than they were a year ago, which I think is very valuable in itself. If you told me Mitch started week 1, I wouldn't be mad, but I'll actually give credit to these next 2 preseason games, depending on how both respectively perform, because by week 2, by the second week of the preseason, we should more or less know who is going to start week 1. And then if whoever respectively starts in game 3 continues to struggle, then we'll have definitive answers as far as like what was probably the right move. Who knows? Maybe the Seattle Seahawks and their backups and their starters were just that bad, and Pete Carroll's going to have a rough year. So it doesn't matter who's starting against them. They were going to have a day.
But Seattle's in that camp of hashtag blow for Bryce at this point. They're trying to suck, plug the quarterback, and immediately get good again.
Drew Lock had a couple touchdowns in that game too. So watch it, buddy.
In fairness, Geno Smith is going to be the week 1 starter.
Spicy take. Got some Seahawks talk on the Steelers talk. But guys, let us know, who do you think should be the week 1 starter? Should it be obviously Mason Rudolph? Come on, right? My boy Mason.
Trade him to the
Or
Jets, trade him to the Giants.
Kenny Pickett, or, Mitch Trubisky. Drop below in the comments. Leave a like on this video. From Juju Talk Sports, Kyle Ledbetter. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.